All right, well,
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
well, thanks for coming to the meeting this afternoon. We have a 15-minute presentation by our presenter,
Wait,
who's arrived.
does the moving of the room count towards that?
No. And so we'll let him begin by introducing himself. We hope that you will be willing to ask some questions, whether they're tech related or whether they're just as a potential questions that you might run across at a board meeting of some sort. Feel free to ask any type of question, and we'll let him begin by introducing himself, and we'll go from there.
I'm Austin Hawes. Thank you for coming today. My presentation, or my senior project, was to create a student activities calendar / planner, I guess. The inspiration for this came from, at the beginning of the year you get like a piece of paper that's kind of like got some kind of, it's not really a calendar, it's more like a list of dates, and then it kind of tells you like what activity is like on that day. And so that's what my inspiration for this was, to put it on like a mobile app, so then you wouldn't have to like go find that paper, because I don't really keep papers that often. So that's where the inspiration for this came from. Sorry, I kind of have to, this is kind of awkward. So this is a Mac Mini, and before this project I'd never really used an Apple computer per se. Like, I've used them but never like for a long extended period of time, so I had to get used to like some of the key things that I do is like, you know, like copy paste, like control or whatever. And so on a Mac you don't, it's like you use the alt button instead, and so for a while there it just kind of like would throw me off because I was just like used to using a Windows machine, so I had to kind of like overcome that. And then when you go to a, I'll just show you. When you open like a browser on a Windows machine, the X and like minimize everything is on the right side, but on Apple it's on the left. And I know that seems like really subtle, but when you're used to just like like not even like just having like muscle movement and like moving over there,
Sorry.
so I had to overcome that. Another thing that I really liked about the Mac Mini was you can like, if you lose your mouse, you can just like shake it, and it like, it gets bigger, so then you can like find it. So that was really helpful because I kept losing it. But the annoying thing that I found about it was it's hard to have more than one display. I know a lot of people use one display, but being a CIS major, I like to usually have like two displays, whether it's like video or like a web page, and then like what I'm working on, so that I can kind of just look at both without having to minimize everything. There are 3 or 4 lightning bolt connectors at the back, so if you had like a monitor that had a lightning bolt connector, or if you had like an adapter that actually worked, or that was like Apple certified, or you know, sometimes stuff works, sometimes it doesn't. You could have more than one display, but I only have the HDMI, which is really helpful because most of the monitors that we have in the lab have HDMI, and so I was able to just plug it in whatever, and that wasn't a big deal. It has 2 USB ports, and it also has, I think it's 10 gigabit Ethernet jack on the back, so you can actually plug it into the wall. That was really nice. So that was just like my whole experience with the Mac, or I guess that's not the whole experience. I didn't connect my personal Apple account to it, so I didn't get like the full experience of like having like my text messages show up like while I was working, but like I kind of, I don't know, I understand it, and I thought that would have been pretty cool. But I did get to experience, so I have these Power Beats, they're like these wireless headphones, and Apple owns Beats now, so they put their priority W1 chip, which is in the AirPods, in these headphones, and so like it instantly like connects, like you just hold down the button and like it pops up, and it's really cool. And a cool thing is if you have like an Apple phone or like an iPad or something, you can, and if it's connected through like your Apple ID, you can connect it to your phone and it'll automatically connect to the your Mac. And so that's pretty cool how just like everything in Apple's little ecosystem just kind of like works seamlessly, and I really like that. Okay, and so to get started, I had to learn about xcode. Sorry, I gotta pull up the right. So I actually made two apps. One is my calendar, and the first one is this war card game. So I didn't come up with the code for this. Like none of this is mine. I followed a tutorial to do this. It was like from knowing nothing about xcode to making this workable app, and I'll demonstrate it here in a second. But so xcode is like what this whole thing is, and Swift is like the coding language you use to like program in it. And so just the tutorial I went through just took me through the steps of basically showing you how the code and xcode work, and how you can like implement design. So this is called the main storyboard, and on the main storyboard you can have different views. So this would be like a single view, and you can have multiple views. And so, you know, like you usually have, like you could have an app where there's like stuff down here or something, or like a menu and you tap and it goes to a different view or a different page or whatever. And the way the view works is it's kind of like, for you that know Microsoft Visual Basic, it's kind of like that, where you can kind of just like drop stuff in and then like put the code next, like you kind of look at it before you actually put the code in. And it works a lot kind of like Photoshop. I don't know if any of you know how Photoshop works. Usually there's layers. So like these cards are above this background, like the background's below everything else. So if I put the background above the cards, you wouldn't be able to see anything except for a green screen. And I can show you that. Okay, so these, and also you can have these containers called stacks, and that's what these cards are in right now. And it just makes like organizing stuff really simple, because if you don't put these things called constraints on these objects, when you load up the app, they could just be like all scrambled and like messed up. So this kind of just gives them, like it just kind of holds it in place, and you can tell them to do like different things, which is kind of cool. So like the safe area, usually it's like a few pixels within the screen, so then like when you make something, the phone itself isn't like cutting off what you made, because that wouldn't be very effective. So I'll demonstrate this, or I'll show you the code. So that's the main storyboard, and that's very graphical, but this is actually Swift. This is the language that you code in. And something that I found very interesting when learning how to like code stuff is you have outlets and actions, and so everything on the screen you can like tell it to do something, like whether it's a picture or whether it's like a text box. But like an outlet is almost like a text box. For example, if you wanted like some words to come onto the screen, you'd use that as an outlet, but if you wanted a button to be pressed, you'd make it an action. So that was a little different, because I don't really recall having to do something like that before, so just like that mentality. So you got your variables, your left and right score, and then they're equal to 0, so like every time you start the game, it'll be even. And then I had to set the cards, they're all numbered like by name, and so then we randomized the numbers, and then we set it to where it would just, each side would just randomly pick a number, and then those numbers are assigned to like an asset, which is an image, and so then you can actually see which cards are on the screen. And then I just simple, if the left number is greater than the right number, then the one of the sides gets a point, and then vice versa. And then if it's a tie, it just doesn't. No one gets a point. So what else is cool about like the Mac lineup is like you have like virtual simulators of your phone. So I don't have a developer account because it costs money, so I can't like send it to my phone and like show you on my phone that it works. But this is an actual like iPhone 11 on the computer, and so when you click the deal button, it's just a basic word card game, but there's a lot more than just like it looks simple, but there's like a lot behind the scenes that make it work. And so that's what I went through. It was like I think like 11 30-minute videos or something like that, and it wasn't just like I just like watched through it and just like, oh, I understand this. Like you had to like go back and like try to figure out, and then like pause it and like look at the screen to see if like what he typed is actually a backslash or forward slash. And so that was interesting. And so then I'm going to end that simulation so I can show you the next one. Okay, so this is my student activities calendar. So my idea behind it was, because I looked up how to make a like a calendar, and so a calendar already exists on your iPhone, and I couldn't find anything to like, oh, this is how you make a calendar. And so what I did was I decided to make each one of the days a button. So then when you program like what is on what day, then it shows up and tells you. And as you can see, I have a lot of buttons. So this is what it looks like on the phone. So then you have something like your week and then the month or whatever. And so if you pick a day, so then like every time you touch a day, it tells you what day it is, and then like some days there isn't anything, so it'll be blank. But so like November 13th is also like National Kindness Day, so like you could put like we're having a bonfire tonight or something like that, like if you were curious to what is going on that day. And when I was coding this, so that's the main view, and then this is the Swift code for it. So I actually have two blank text boxes, and that's what I'm using to pull up the text onto it. And so when I was making it, I found out that if I didn't have a second text box, like the previous, like when it said National Kindness Day, if I clicked on November 14th, it would still say that. And so I had to have a way to clear that. And so then I decided to use two text boxes, and then every time you click on a new day, if there is nothing, it actually, there's something there, you just can't see it, and it makes it invisible. And so that's how I did that. But that is my project.
Okay.
Do you
Be asked
guys
two
have
questions.
any questions?
Yeah, you showed us November, I mean, we're in November, and I noticed it went down through day 30. Do you have a way to switch it to December, and does it populate to day 31 on December?
I do not have other months on there
Okay,
currently.
okay.
Also, this was a 40-hour project, so this wasn't a 120-hour project. So I just don't think I said that at the beginning. So like,
Yeah, students
It's
can
not-
take it for
yeah,
1
it's-
credit hour, 2 credit hours.
so this
and
was a
3
1 credit hour instead of a 3 for me. if that
Which makes a difference of
makes
how
a little
long they would
difference
work,
of like,
obviously.
What kind of project they,
So how many hours did you work on this?
40,
40 precisely?
yes.
As soon as you got to 40, in 1 minute you stopped.
like that?
Well, it's, I mean, like, I guess if you consider like troubleshooting, like the 30 minutes it took me to mess around with the projector in there and get it, then I guess it'd be more, but I just kind of stopped keeping track after 40,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
How do you add events?
How do you add events? I'll show you. Oh, it's already here. So each one of these is numbered, so like day 1 is actually the 1st of November or the 1st of the month or whatever. So you come in here and you just change the text. So you actually have to manually go in and change it.
I didn't see that in the code.
Yeah, so like right here, this day 1 is actually November 1st. And so you would, if you wanted to add an event, you would just add the text there.
Now I get the idea that this is one of your first projects to create in this language and things, but how practical would this kind of a calendar be for somebody like student activities to ever use?
Well, like I said, it's more of like the calendar they give you at the beginning of the year, except for it's like on your phone. So it's more of like a convenience type thing. I'm sure there's ways to like add notifications and stuff, but I just never got around to that because of the time.
So would they be able to open up that code and just type it in? Is it that simple, or?
And then it would be like an update for the app. So as long as they keep the app updated on their phone, it'll be updated.
But it's
Or you
built,
could add more months
it's
too.
built more for like a programmer to do what they
Yeah.
want, and then they just like have access to it. It's not really built to have like them editing
Yeah,
it.
so like there's more than one way to like work around stuff. It's just the way like I kind of thought of it, just like as a
Yeah.
programmer side. But there's definitely like if you invested more time into this, it
Right.
could be something a lot better than what it
Yeah.
is. Just
Sure.
have it working.
Yeah.
That's the nature of
That-
every program
Yeah.
project. There's always more that can be done
Yeah.
to it, but
And so this would be like version 1. So like
Yeah. I'm sure it would take a lot more coding to have like an editor on the
Yeah.
other side of the app entering stuff.
and like make accounts and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what let me down a little bit in my research. When I was going through this video series, it kind of like led me on in a way I thought it was gonna like show me how to make accounts and stuff, and then it never did. And so by that time I was already like kind of into it, and so then I just went this way. My thinking.
talk a little bit about that. If the programmer, what happens when people change their mind? Like you say, I don't want to, you didn't really want to start down this path and then have to reconstruct. How does that work in real life when you're in a workplace? What's going to happen?
Well, you gotta make it work. It's like I have it working. I mean, like if I had more time, like if I was like a 3 credit hour class, maybe it would be more advanced, and like I would have put more time into it, but since it was only a 40 credit hour class,
Well, sure, but I'm saying you go to work and they said, this is what we want, and you get it all done, and they come back and they say, oh, but what about this? How you gonna, what is your reaction to that?
well, the cool thing about coding is you can save more than one file, so like you could have this in the meantime while you're also working on something else. You know, like, does that answer your?
Yeah, however you want to answer
Okay.
is fine.
I guess what I don't understand is why would anybody really want to use this system instead of like Outlook? You know, how are you gonna sell it to people that,
Well, it's gonna be, it would be free, you wouldn't sell it, and it's, like I said, it's more like a convenience thing. So like, at the beginning of the year, they give you a piece of paper that has like all the dates on it,
right?
and that's not connected to Outlook at all, like, it's just a piece of paper, and occasionally they post stuff on Facebook, like, the day of the event. But this would be more of like, if you wanted to see what's going on next week, you would just like tap on it and be like, oh, there's some roast and s'mores tonight at the patio, or sand volleyball, or something like that. So it's, cause like, I don't think unless there's something on the school's website, unless there's a calendar on there, I don't know if there is a calendar where you can just go look up student activity events at all.
I think they might have some.
At times in the past there has been, but it's
Yeah.
not always
Like-
up to date, yeah, and it's It's more so like community
And so like,
interest.
I'm also thinking of this from like, I guess my generational, like where I am, like, I'm more likely to pull out my phone and try to find, like, look at a calendar or something than to like go onto my computer and like look up HLG's website and.
That'd be me.
Why should somebody use this rather than just use social media?
Um,
Good question.
because, like I said, social media usually only posts it like the day of or like the day before, so this would be, like, you can actually look more into the future. It's relatively small too, so it's not like it's like a giant app that's like taking up all this space and using up all this data. It's fairly simple, but it has its works.
With a lot more work, I mean, it was a 40-hour project, but with a lot more work, you could tailor it to be customized, HLG, Trojan logos, I mean, exam schedules.
Yeah, you could put like the final
It-
exams on there or stuff
It
like.
could be developed into something that would be really useful for
Mhm.
students. Being free and produced in-house, but just like the website, somebody has to maintain it, and it doesn't take
Yeah.
very long at all to become out of date. You don't just, especially when you put it in this way, if you gotta go into the code and create like a little text message every time you wanna update something, that's not gonna get updated very often. With everything everybody's doing, there need to be some interface created that will let somebody enter an event.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Christina Ruiz.
Or just have it like sync
She's
to
probably
something
not gonna
else.
be excited to say, oh, I get to do this every day. Put put it in, and then as a student,
But then,
but if they did pre-planning and you had a lot of them and it never changed, you might be ahead of the
yeah,
ballgame, but.
that's kind of way I was thinking about it, cause like they already have all those events scheduled, so like someone would have to put them in once and then maybe occasionally change it. Cause that's kind of how the big calendar is, like how do you change a physical piece of paper? You can't. So like if I give you a piece of paper at the beginning of the year that has all the events on it, how are you going to change that? You can't, cause like you'd have to reprint everything, so this is like, would save you paper, I guess. And ink.
You've
Right.
worked in more than one kind of programming language in your experience here. Did you find Swift to be a better language, an easier language?
One thing, that's another
Or
thing I
more
forgot to.
difficult language?
I forgot to mention was, so this didn't really have, sorry, this is. Like this one didn't have like assets, whereas like the War Card game, had all the pictures and stuff. And I didn't get those from my phone, but okay, so another thing Apple has that I really like is AirDrop, and I can just take pictures like this. I took this in Colorado this summer, on my phone, or not on my phone, but it was on my phone, and I could just like send it in like full-size files and stuff, and that was so convenient. I didn't have to go through like Dropbox or Google Drive, because that's just like an extra step that was taken out of the way. So like, if I had a bigger app that I was using, like coding-wise, it's really convenient just to like share stuff without having to go online and like use that.
So are you converted to an Apple Mac person?
At that price, probably not. But no, it was very similar to other coding languages I've used previously. I guess the most I could compare it to would be Microsoft Visual Basic, where you kind of have the graphical interface first and then you code after it. That's what I think I would compare it to the most. But it was, I think it was almost maybe easier in some ways because like they have a library and you can just like type whatever they have available. So like if I needed a button or a stack, and you could just take the word and drag it and drop it, and it just appeared. And then like if you wanted to connect like your constraint, so like the action or the output, you could just like literally just drag it and drop it in the code and it would like create code for you. So that was really cool. It's kind of like intuitive, but
How did your project management to go time-wise? When did you start? When did you finish? When did you put in the bulk of the work?
I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head because at first we weren't even sure if we were gonna go this route, because this was not cheap
No.
to acquire, and I had no other access to a Mac computer, and then I got the okay, and so then it took a couple weeks to get here, and then that was pretty exciting to like open it and like set it up, and I'm really grateful for that because like I would have had this experience if you guys hadn't purchased this for the lab, and I know there's probably some other people that are really gonna enjoy being able to like mess around with new technology like this.
Do you remember Michelle mentioned yesterday the matching grant that we were able to
Yeah.
get this past spring? And that was one of the items purchased with that matching
Oh,
grant.
cool.
So we
Read
don't
the
have any,
foundation.
yeah, and we don't have any
Which one?
coding classes
Riedel
for Mac or
Foundation,
Swift,
well,
so
it's
this is a
big-
Kind of
it's a
completely
former banker in
new
town.
venue for
I guess
him. I mean, we didn't
RIED.
give him any training
I
in,
guess
we gave him coding training, but
Foundation.
You had to learn like the syntax and stuff, so like there's just like everything's
Yeah.
very similar, but it's like very
They
different at
did
the same
lots
time,
of,
like the little
so
things.
the whole thing was a
the
problem
locals, so
in and of
it's
itself, with
kid-related,
zero
education
real
related,
experience.
community development
So I
related.
guess the
What's the
other
guy's
question I
name, you
have
know?
is if you're using this system
Okay.
and you're
He's passed
gonna
away.
push it
I
out to
believe
other
it's
people to
Hannibal
use,
National
then they
Bank
have
that
to have a
which
Mac
manages
or
it.
iPhone.
Hannibal National
Yeah,
Bank.
you would have to have an Apple
believe
device
that's
to
right.
view it.
So I'm,
Probably most
my
students
new
have
business
that.
is trying to find money.
A lot of students
I
have.
don't- Yeah,
Well,
but they're
we've done
still
stuff through
pricey,
Riedel
so you'd be
Foundation
surprised how
Well,
many
there's some
don't.
people that don't,
for
but I mean,
years.
the
They,
majority of people that
So
have an
you can
iPhone
write
probably
that.
tell their friends and stuff.
Yeah. And
Or they have an iPad.
They,
Yeah,
Okay. That's good to know.
we had submitted a grant.
then you need to see if there's any more questions and thank them for
Someone else
coming.
did too.
Does anybody else have any other
Somebody else on
questions?
campus, another program. Might have been nursing, but
Thank you guys for coming. Sorry that it took so long to set it up, but
So what was the problem in the other room?
so I think it was just like
the
sometimes,
adapter cable.
yeah, like.
They're
and it's
not
a Mac,
designed for it.
So like, Macs aren't always the greatest at connecting with everything, and then like.
That's why they do what they do so well. I mean, this seriously, like that drag and
Yeah.
drop and creates a code. Mac is so proprietary, they control everything, hardware,
Yeah.
software, every single step they control. So what they control, they can make work beautifully. And it costs a lot more, you pay more
Yeah.
for that.
Sure.
But they do not endeavor to be able to work with everything nicely. And Microsoft goes the other way, and they try to play with everybody. Any keyboard you wanna use, any monitor you wanna use, it's supposed to be able to plug and work and play.
Plug and play.
But then they can't make everything so integrated, and you just kinda left having to make a
Yeah.
lot of
And-
code work yourself. And
Yeah, and you referenced like, well, it might have been the adapter. Well, the adapter itself wasn't bad, it's
It's
just
just
that
what
the
the-
pin sets in there don't play nicely with what it's expecting to transmit and receive, so you either buy their version with the right pin in the right place, or you figure out another solution.
I'm glad you were able to make this work.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming, and we are looking for feedback. If you'll leave that form in the pit, we'll let Austin take a look at that. We'll finish grading his project, and you've already seen his paper if you wanted
Slide
to.
mine down.
Do you guys need
And-
to see anything on this?
No, I don't,
Um,
but
Now with this,
I don't think so.
this isn't the time to ask the question.
I do think, I don't know, how many files are in that setup? Can you zip them all and then upload them into the
I think
Canvas?
I've already have,
Already upload all
yeah,
the
'cause
code?
I think it was due like,
Yeah,
when the
sometimes
paper's
students
due, but-
forget or make a last change or something, so we do want all the code uploaded. Um, All right, well, that concludes our time. Thank you for sharing your afternoon before